I'm Bill Auten of Auten Claims Management.
I'm Chantal Roberts of CMR Consulting, and welcome to the Art of Adjusting podcast.
Today, we're going to talk about life as an insurance adjuster from the perspective of property, auto, liability, or workers' compensation adjusters. Our goal is to bring interesting topics in the world of claims adjusting to people who are working as an adjuster now and to people who are considering a career as a claims adjuster. Hey, Chantal, today we're going to talk about treat yourself. That
Treat
means,
yourself.
how are we going to deal with the stresses and the trials and tribulations of a day in claims? And we have a special guest today, Brandon Cabrera. Hello, Brandon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys today?
Pretty good.
Doing well.
Brandon's a longtime fan of ours, and he likes to reach out and talk with us and ask us questions every once in a while, and we love that. So today's topic, though, treat yourself, has to do with kind of the stresses that we all experience as adjusters. Since I am probably the least touchy-feely guy you're ever going to meet in this industry, I'll be asking more questions than providing answers here today. In fact, when I told my wife about the topic today, she said, "Oh, I better email Chantal and let her know about you, Bill, because
So it's going to be a short. It's going to be a short one, huh?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm pretty good at asking questions, so we'll take that stance. I like taking the back seat and asking questions when I don't know the answers. So you laid out a topic sheet for us today, and first we're going to talk about an introduction to mental health in the adjusting profession. So Chantal, why don't you go ahead and take the lead there and tell us what concerns we have about mental health in this business?
Mental health is becoming less and less of a taboo, and I think that it should be that way. We shouldn't have to feel shame or anything to that effect because we seek help. It's no different than when we sprain our ankle or when we have a cold or anything like that. It's just that we are dealing with our mind. And what many people do not realize is that adjusters, we get yelled at pretty much 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
We're not allowed to yell back.
No, 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 we are not. Even going into these catastrophic areas, it just impacts us.
Sure, it does. It affects our mood for the rest of the day. Sometimes more than just a day.
Yes.
Brandon, what do you think about mental health in this business now? Well, first of all, tell everybody how long you've been in the claims business.
So I'm a relatively new adjuster. I started adjusting in November of 22.
Okay.
Um, as far as the mental health aspect, I mean, I think it plays a big role in adjusting. I mean, we deal with a highly stressful job. I mean, myself, I'm an independent adjuster. I take assignments where I'm working catastrophes 7 days a week, 12-hour days at some point, and I still have to continue with my outside life beyond work, which has its own set of stresses. So it's like trying to mitigate that and manage your day to day stuff at work can get complicated.
Catch 22, because sometimes you get stressed out because of the volume or because of the circumstances. And then that leads to trip ups because you're not on top of your game, because you're worried about whatever it happens to be on your plate that day. And the frequency of mistakes that you could make increases. And then any one mistake just adds to the load.
Yeah, let's talk about being a catastrophe adjuster or cat adjuster real quick, because those people, guys and gals that go out there and work the hurricanes, the tornadoes, and whatever, they do work sun up to sundown, and then they go back to their hotel rooms and write estimates all night long for our listeners who do not know what those adjusters happen to do, those field appraisers happen to do. So you are often working until midnight or 1 o'clock because you have to be turning around those estimates and damage appraisals very, very quickly, coupled by the fact that you are not at your house. So you're eating junk food, that makes you feel even worse. And again, there is a lot of stress because everybody wants you to handle their claims right away. And unfortunately, it just doesn't happen that way. So I really feel for Brandon, and he has to have a lot of mental resiliency as well as physical resiliency when we have those people going out and getting up on roofs or crawling under foundations or whatever to write those estimates.
Even on the desk side of it all, I mean, I personally, I've been working desk assignments, so I luckily can work from the comfort of my own home, which provides its own separate set of stresses and things. There's a lot that goes on beyond the scenes that an insured doesn't really um expect or understand. They kind of just expect, where's my check?
Let's
Yeah.
talk about that real quick. May I interrupt real quick, Bill? I just saw an article from, I think it was Claims Journal, and it said that something like 80% of claimants expect their checks within 5 days, and they no longer expect paper checks. And I thought, oh, bless their little hearts, as we say in the South, that is never going to happen. We can, and we do even now, send out cards, debit cards. I've got my own personal opinions on those. And they can do the wire transfer, which is what these people, the claimants, were expecting. And I say claimants, I mean first party and third party claimants. But if you knew how complicated the claims process is, especially during a hurricane, even, or any kind of catastrophe for that matter, even the departments of insurance loosen up the requirements for contact, because usually you have to make contact within 20 days, 30 days, 15 days, or as soon as possible, or as soon as practical, or whatever. Even the Department of Insurance realizes that you get this influx of losses, and they loosen the requirements. But what Brandon said about being a desk adjuster is absolutely correct with the mental health. And I was going to use this as an example of me personally when I was a desk adjuster during Hurricane Katrina. Now, I was in Arkansas. I was in no way really impacted by Hurricane Katrina, except for the fact that I, received 300 claims. But for 3 weeks, I dreamt of drowning. And that was because for 8 hours a day, from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., I just listened to insureds talking about their houses being flooded and being knocked off their, foundations, and there's nothing left but a concrete slab. And that is an example of the mental toll that claims can take on people.
Yeah, and I can provide some commentary for outside field adjusters, particularly with respect to cat duty. Not only do you have the mental stress of dealing with people who are very demanding, you're also dealing with public adjusters who may be, part of their job is to get you off your game.
Mm.
And a lot of them are good at using techniques that fluster the adjuster. A lot of roofing contractors employ those same tactics to take an accusatory stance against the adjuster, make them appear as if they are constantly making mistakes, or that they're intentionally trying to screw somebody out of money, which doesn't make anybody feel good if that's what you're being accused of. That, coupled with the fact that you are doing some fairly physical work, climbing roofs, you're carrying ladders around, you're climbing up around them, that burns some calories. When I do cat duty type deployments, I drop 10 to 15 pounds easy. That, coupled with the mental stress, can be very challenging. And I would say, and I've said this to many people, it's not a job for everybody. If dealing with pressure where you're dealing with timelines, deadlines, and you're dealing with physical, um, you know, physical loads every day that you've got to endure, if that's going to be a problem, this probably isn't the career for you. Or maybe you do a desk job instead of a field job. But the stresses that you have in either respect are they can have a significant effect on people. Where some people just leave the business. Lunatics like me stick around.
Well, Brandon was talking about maintaining his social connections in addition to doing the work. And how do you do that balance?
I mean, it's really difficult. I try to make friends or stay connected to other adjusters. I mean, people who understand what's going on. I mean, I have friends that work in the field, others who are also desk adjusters. I mean, some of my closest connections at this point are adjusters just because they get it.
It's
Like,
funny when you talk to non-adjusters and you start talking about what you do, their eyes kind of glaze over and they're like, yeah, whatever. But you get an adjuster in a room and you sit down and start talking, you won't shut up, as evidenced by this podcast.
Exactly. Yes. We actually have to cut ourselves off at an hour.
Yeah,
We're like, no one's going to listen past an hour.
but it's because we have that much in common. And the reality is that this job, it's not like I've never known anybody successful in this career who treated it as a job that they didn't think about off hours. It's
Mm-hmm.
just one of those jobs that you have that the reality is you're probably going to bring a story or two home with you. And your spouse or significant other is going to say, enough insurance for the night, please.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uncle.
I love
That's
swapping war stories with somebody just to hear some crazy claim that they've dealt with. Or sometimes I'll write stuff out that I want to remember, and when I find it again later, I'm like, oh man, I completely forgot about that. That was crazy.
yeah. It
Mm-hmm.
is. I used to keep anytime I had a claim that hit the news for whatever reason, I would clip the new we don't really have newspapers well, we have them, but who reads newspapers, right? But I would save the newspaper clippings from significant stories. I still have them in a file somewhere. I don't think they're here, but that'd be a fun podcast looking at some of those old ones. There's some pretty bad ones in that file, but they stick with you, and that's the weird part about this job is yeah, it stresses you out and it sometimes makes you miserable for a little while, but you can't escape from it. You can't get it out of your head because if you're wired for it, it is an interesting career.
Absolutely. And Brandon, tell me if you feel this way to support what Bill said. I used to tell people that I was interviewing for an adjuster job that this was not a 40-hour a week job. This was not a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 job. I mean, we're looking at 60 hours because you always have something to do and you have to do it on time because there are regulations. You have to hit those, and if you don't, you could get fined. You could have your adjuster license revoked. The insurance company could be fined. They could, be kicked out of the state. I don't think I've ever heard of that, but it could happen. How do you feel about that? Did you experience that at all?
Especially because I'm working cat. I mean, the hours are really long. The requirements that are put on you are high. I mean, you're dealing with a large batch of claims that you have to get through all in a certain amount of time. You're meeting your first contact deadlines, and surprisingly, you would like. I know in a cat situation, depending on what the claims are from, it may be difficult for the insured to pick up the phone or answer an email because of power outages or what they're dealing with. But in other situations where I've worked just simple auto claims, you'd be surprised how many people don't contact you back or just don't answer when you call. You would think from an adjuster standpoint, you're like, okay, but don't you want to get your stuff repaired? And I just don't know what the disconnect is there. But there's definitely a lot of stress in in dealing with the claims. Even my spouse just sits around going, "Why do you work so much?"
Yeah, I actually have that happen. Now my husband is in claims as well, and he will sit there and say that I am never off. And so we actually have a hard time not talking about insurance claims. And so when we go on dates or whatever, we have to have no claim talk, no insurance talk, because we're both and it's just really easy to lapse, like you said, into these war stories. And then we're just completely embroiled in that. And that doesn't lead to, good sleep or healthy eating, because then you're just constantly stressed.
And then once you're done and you finally got your chance to put your mind at ease for a little bit, then you have other things that you got to worry about besides the job, like continuing education credits that you have to find time for throughout the year, or, keeping up with the latest training trends.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I was going to ask about this to Bill and you, Brandon. What do y'all think when we're talking about having that support system? I was going to suggest looking for all of the adjusters looking towards their local adjusting or claims association. Here in Kansas City, it's the Greater Kansas City Claims Association. And it's like you said, you start talking to other adjusters and you feel seen. You feel heard, and it's just fantastic to have that weight lifted off of you. What do y'all think about that?
I would say that having that outlet is important, but fewer and fewer people seem to have the time to participate in that off work hours. With the economy the way it is, there's these two income households. Everybody's working. My wife and I, the kids are all out of the house now. They're in college or living on their own or whatever, and it feels like we get home from work and there's no time to do anything even after work. It just seems like we put so much stuff on top of ourselves that it's difficult to have any free time, and to carve out another 3 hours, let's say, to go to an insurance meeting somewhere at the end of a day. It's difficult for me, and I've been doing this a long time. And I started out in the mindset that you had to do that stuff. And I did do that stuff for many, many years. But today, it just seems like the turnouts are always less. The claims association, I know there's a very strong claims association in Kansas City. There is here in Buffalo and in Syracuse and a few other cities, but the turnouts do seem to be dwindling as time goes on, especially after COVID. Once COVID hit, it seems like all of that stuff kind of just went away, and we're not finding time for it. We're maybe not making time for it. I think that's a signal that there are other stressors in our life right now. And I think for everybody, the economy's hitting pretty hard. Just the cost of housing and groceries and gas and all that stuff is just adding a new level of stress and anxiety that we just don't need, particularly in this business.
I found a lot of great success in just talking and finding other adjusters through social media. I mean, LinkedIn is great for networking. Twitter, I found a lot of people on Twitter, and we all just connect and try to push each other to do well in the industry, or motivate each other. I mean, I've even talked to certain adjusters on Twitter that are dealing with high stress situations as far as work, but then in their own personal lives, we've become such good friends that they've dealt with losses and don't know who to speak to, or just need somebody to vent to, and to be able to find that through social media is kind of cool.
It's interesting. There's a lot of Facebook groups around the topic of claims adjusters, and I'm in all of them. And if you ever want to get really stressed out, some of those people can be just absolutely brutal. Simple questions can be answered with such vitriol that it's off-putting, I would say. So that's a fair warning about the Facebook things that I've seen out there. There's a few groups that try and monitor that stuff and put it to rest before it gets out of hand. But other times, just like every other social media group out there, you always have someone who knows better than
Mm.
someone else pointing fingers and telling someone that they're wrong about something. And you just read that stuff and you just scratch your head. So social media has various levels of good and bad, I would say.
I started off with the Facebook groups and stuff. I eventually just migrated to the Twitter, because I don't know what it is about the Facebook groups. I don't know if they just get too large, or what it is, that you get some people that do definitely misdirect or are very negative for no reason. And with the folks that I found on Twitter, it just seems to be all about motivation, and sometimes you get like quick little funny things, or that, but just not a lot of negativity.
That's what
Interesting.
I would put an emphasis on with social media, because it's been scientifically proven, psychologically proven, that social media tends to make us feel worse because we're always trying to keep up with the Joneses. Since we're talking about treat yourself and trying to make yourself feel better, or not make yourself feel better, I should say, but maybe find releases, find support while it's good. For example, when I'm looking at social media, I only apply to the ones that just talk in memes and they're just cracking jokes. Um,
Mhm.
because that is another coping mechanism. If you're feeling depressed or stressed or whatever, and you have Sirius radio, turn it on the comedy channels. If you have cable, watch a comedy special, or you got Netflix and Netflix until, you watch the latest comedian streaming thing. And that is another way to help you release some of these negative emotions, in addition to what we've already talked about, which is finding a support network of other adjusters, or going to your local claims association, or seeking medical help with a therapist. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it's just like going to see your general practitioner for a stomach ache.
There's a lot of different ways to let go of just the stress. Going to the gym, a lot of people find relief in that. Running, I mean, running a runner's high is a thing.
I have never gotten into running. I do have this app called Zombie Run because I always said that I would never run even if zombies were chasing me. And then I started thinking, I wonder if there's an app for that. And of course there is. And it is fun because they have this whole story about how it's the end of the world, zombie apocalypse, yada, yada, yada. And so you have to go get tools or people or rescue people or get food for your community, and zombies chase you. So it's fun. But yeah, no, I've never gotten that runner's high. I have to say that.
Me neither. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. I know what you're talking about, the runner's high, but running has never been one of my favorite things to do. Cycling, I'm more of a cyclist, but in the best times in my life is when I am doing that on a regular basis, on a scheduled basis, where I feel fit and I'm working on the physical part of me. That always reduces my stress level. The
Mhm.
funny thing is that you get into these stressful times where you simply don't have time to do that. And unfortunately, sometimes you get into a stage where if you were to carve out time for that, something else would suffer. It might be the business, it might be your relationship. It's keeping that balance and keeping everything in harmony is the real trick to things.
I do
Well,
want to point out that those adjusters who are in like big corporations, they even have employee assistant programs. Use your HSAs, your health savings accounts, to pay for therapy or treatment, or the gym. I mean, sometimes your HSA can pay for a gym. I hear what you're saying, Bill. You have to balance between spending time with your spouse or your job or whatever, and something feels like that suffers. That's when you just ask your spouse if they want to walk around the block with you while you take the dog for a walk, because that's also some energy.
that counts. Yeah.
Some time spending outside, 5 minutes out, eat outside, get some sunlight. And not now because it's freaking freezing. But except for
Speak for
Brandon, who
yourself. It
lives in
was 80
Florida,
here yesterday.
who he doesn't count. He lives in Florida, so we don't like him. But yeah, get some sun. There's even the Japanese concept of forest bathing, which is, going out and sitting in a park and seeing trees. Literally decreases your stress. It's been psychologically and scientifically proven.
My office right now, I'm looking out. I've got these huge windows and I'm literally looking at a forest. There's a park across the street from me. So I have zero stress.
Yeah, there you go. So Brandon, you have a lot of sun. How much stress do you have?
I mean, I have a lot of sun, but I also have a lot of small children. Speaking of the weather here, I always find it to be a funny icebreaker when insured start talking to you about how crazy the weather is, and then when they hit me with that question, I was just dealing with the freeze claims last week, and they were asking me, yeah, like, where are you located? I start laughing. I'm like, dude, you don't want to know where I am right now.
Just say I'm in North Dakota and leave it at that.
Outside's always good. There's something, I don't know, like I like to just walk outside in the grass in my bare feet. It's like very grounding.
That is true. That is very, very true. Scientifically proven that helps lower your stress. So even if you're an adjuster, you're stressed out, what about if you did a picnic, but it doesn't have to be anything formal? You could do a picnic in your backyard. If you got some grass, get your kids there, your spouse there, and you have some sandwiches. It doesn't have to be anything huge,
So,
but
Brandon, since you work at home, can you talk a little bit about how you manage keeping work and personal life separate? That is usually a challenge for people because depending on their living situation, if they don't have a dedicated office, their laptop is out or there's something work related that's always out and visible. And whenever I've worked out of my home, I've always made sure that there was a place that I could put that stuff so that when I was off the clock, I was mentally off the clock. Do you do that? And do you have any tips or tricks?
Definitely try separating yourself from your everyday living space. I previously didn't have a big enough place where I had an office. Honestly, I was using my son's bedroom as my workspace because he was not home when I was working, and then I didn't have to look at it at the end of the day. Now I'm in a bigger place and I have an office that it's the master bedroom realistically, but I use it kind of like as an office space because it has its own bathroom. I literally don't come in here when I'm not working. I shut the door, don't look at it, don't want anything to do with it when I'm not working. But I mean, involved in so many different little things in addition to my regular job. Work never stops, so sometimes I put my phone on like airplane mode. Don't Nobody's gonna get a hold of me. I make a point to at least once every other week to do at least one thing for myself. Like my thing is to go shooting, so I'll go to the range or
That's a great thing. I was experiencing a lot of stress one time, and I turned off my email notifications that pop up when you see that you've gotten a new email. And I found that that helped reduce stress. And I know we're specifically talking about like treat yourself. By all means, go to a spa day, which is, kind of what we were talking about, how the phrase came about with treat yourself with Parks and Recreation. But just these little bitty things that you can do, put your phone on airplane mode or give yourself 2 hours of no phone time just so that you can catch up is a great stress reliever.
yeah, I mean, treat yourself can be free stuff too. Like you don't have to spend money. I mean, I'm sure everybody's got something that they could bake in the house. If you like to bake, just spend a little bit of time with stuff you got at home already. Bake yourself a cake. If you like writing, like I've been doing a lot more writing recently. I'll just sit down. My spouse will sit there watching Grey's Anatomy, which honestly is not my favorite show in the universe. So I'll sit there, I'll lay on the couch with her, and while she's watching her show, I'm sitting there on my phone plugging away notes for my next thing I'm gonna write.
Yeah.
There's plenty of free stuff you could do.
Put a puzzle on the table. Every time you get up for a cup of coffee, put some more pieces down, and before you know it, you'll have a puzzle done.
That's a great idea, Brandon, is do something creative. We are stuck as adjusters, we are stuck in a kind of analytical and logical mode. And to do something creative is a great release.
There's a mental treat that I have that happens every 10 days here at the office. And it sounds really stupid, but I've got 4 plants here and I water and feed them. And I can't tell you how much I look forward to that every week. It pops up on my little to-do list and I'm like, oh boy, I get to. And what's amazing is that they're growing like crazy. They're really healthy plants. They become, something I'm very proud of because here I am on this schedule. But I have to say, I literally get excited to water and feed my plants. So the little things sometimes, recognizing that that is something of value to you and making that important, that counts.
It
Well,
counts.
gardening's been scientifically proven to reduce stress and increase longevity in people.
Mhm. That is very true. That is very true.
Weeds stress me out though.
Weeds are supposed to be actually to kind of get a little bit off topics. Weeds are actually supposed to be really good for you, depending on the type of weed.
Yeah, come on over to my place sometime, Brandon. We
Well,
got some foxtail millet that's destroying our fields up in the big garden.
but again, you are outside, you are getting some sun, you got your feet in the grass. So again,
Yeah.
we're doing all of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I joke about the weeds and stuff. They are frustrating, but that is an escape for me is playing in the farm and dealing with the chickens and I got an old tractor, like to bounce around the field with that. Yeah, having hobbies that you can definitely shut work off and go do is a good thing. When I'm not, at my desk, I'm usually tramping around in the mud and dirty. So we have resources and support systems, and I think you've already mentioned EAPs.
Mhm. Mhm.
We've got the topic of healthy eating and quality sleep. I think we talked a little bit about healthy eating. I know that right now I'm in the midst of a Whole30 with my lovely bride, and that is great fun. It's actually going pretty well.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. The quality sleep thing is interesting because when we started the Whole30, for some reason, I was just beat tired for the first 2 weeks, and I was going to bed very early, where I would usually go to bed around 11 o'clock at night, get up at 5. Now it's like, I would say the first 2 weeks anyway, I'd be in bed by 8, 8:30. That was very unusual for me.
Mhm.
It's starting to change that. But anyway, healthy eating, even though you could be on a kick like I am right now for this Whole30 thing, you do have to recognize that if you're eating unhealthy as a habit, that's going to have some long-term effects that you really need to get your arms around before too long. So I would suggest that you're monitoring what you eat, stay away from the fast food and stuff. If you have a particular, like a lot of people have foods that just set them off for whatever reason, if you're gluten intolerant, or there's so many food allergies out there now. If you're not feeling quite right, talk to a nutritionist. Maybe you've got some food allergies or food issues that you never were aware of. We all change as we get older, and
We
things
do.
that didn't bother you when you were 16, now that you're in your 30s or 40s, might start to bother you. If you're not eating healthy, your stress level is not going to improve on its own.
Exactly. I will say this on our health plan. I was able to sign up for free as part of the employee benefit thing to have a nutritionist and a dietitian check in with me. They sent me a scale. I'm going to be part of a group. I mentioned it earlier, it is hard when you are living out of a hotel as a cat adjuster to eat correctly. I would encourage you to, at least go to the grocery store and get some healthy snacks. I understand that you're going to hit up McDonald's or whatever, because look, even their salads have just as much sugar and salt because of the dressing as the hamburger does. And so you're just like, well, why not just get the hamburger? But do watch because it makes you sluggish, which will affect your mental capabilities and it affects your sleep as well. Because then you get sleep apnea, you're waking up in the middle of the night, not having a full 8 hours if that's what you need. I need 9 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Sleep. And I'm one of those people that never had to sleep a lot, where my wife is kind of different that way.
Mhm.
But I know what I need, and I know when I don't get enough. I am the type that will sleep 5 hours a night for a couple weeks, and then I'll need 8 or 9 hours one night, and then I can't go to bed the next day. Like I can't fall asleep because I got too much sleep. So anyway, we're all different. Know yourself, know your body, know what your limits are too.
Mhm.
What's that phrase? Is it Clint Eastwood? A good man knows his limitations.
Yeah.
I used to say, in response to that, I used to say, a good man has no limitations. But we all know that's not true, don't we?
Yes. Brandon, what else would you like to let adjusters know? New adjusters, more experienced, I guess, adjusters. What would you like to say in parting?
Love this field. I know I'm newer to it, and people might just think, oh, he's the green pea adjuster who's still got motivation and loves it. But I mean, I really enjoy learning about it. Definitely would say it's not for everyone, but you can definitely get out of it what you put in. Don't give up on yourself. There's people out here who definitely can give you that little extra push or steer you in the right direction. You just got to do a little work and try and find them.
Great advice.
Mhm.
I think we do a pretty good job here about talking the industry up, talking in a positive light about the job. I happen to love the job. I've been doing it for a long time. Yes, we can all sit here and complain about the things that are bad about this job, but show me a job that doesn't have those aspects, right?
Right.
I think that on balance, the people that I've known that have been in this business for a long time, like you said, Brandon, you sit across the table from them and you can talk for hours. And every sentence will start with, I had this claim once. Or we drive around the countryside here and I will say, oh, yeah, I had a claim there. I had a claim there. I was just there last week. It makes for an entertaining career for sure. That's all I have. Anybody have any closing comment?
Take care of yourself. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, we love this job, but you cannot help others. And I think that's kind of our job as adjusters, because the people that we were helping have suffered a loss. But it's like they say in the airplane, you got to put your oxygen mask on first before you help elderly or your kids. So you need to take care of yourself so that you can take care of your claimants, first party or third party, is what I would say. So take
Yeah.
care of yourself.
Take care of yourself and listen to us.
Yeah, because we're geniuses, all of us. I do want to say, by the
Yeah.
way, super excited about our next in 2 weeks. We are going to be talking with Sean Griffin. He's an attorney. I've been following him on LinkedIn. So if y'all haven't followed him already, start following him. He is absolutely hysterical. But we're going to be talking cybersecurity. And it is actually going to be interesting. You're not going to fall asleep, I promise, because he is interesting guy. So 2 weeks, same time, same bat channel. Do be sure to review us, write a comment. The algorithm picks those things up, 5-star reviews, that sort of thing.
Right on. Okay. Thanks again, Brandon. Great to see you.
Great to be here. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
All right.
Brandon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us on the Art of Adjusting podcast, where we talk about life as an insurance adjuster.
If you enjoyed this podcast or this episode, please give us 5 stars and a review. It does help the algorithm pick us up.
Hit that subscribe button real quick and tell all of your adjuster friends to check this out as well. For independent adjusting services, go to www.auten.claims. And for anyone interested in working as an independent liability adjuster, go to the Contact Us tab to join our roster.
In the meantime, you can contact me at theartofadjusting.com for consulting and training purposes.